So you already know because you're registered, but this is the What's Next webinar. This is the first time that we've done one of these for non-clients, and we're going to be going through some of the fundamentals that our clients that use Phil and myself for business planning that they really nail in their business, and some of the things that we think are really key concepts that you should understand when you go through the business planning process. And obviously there's a lot of talk out there about the importance of having a plan, and we'll get into some of that stuff. But tonight we're just going to go through some of the things that is critical for business owners to be able to nail. And if you can, then you're going to go a lot further. And this is something that Phil and I do every single year. Part of the reason for running this webinar is that right now we are supposed to be in Mt Maunganui, staying at Cutter's Cove, I think it was called, and enjoying a week of our own business planning, much like we are here in this photo when over 4 years ago now, we spent the week in Fiji. It probably could have been a couple of days, because some of you would have already heard the story, but we went for the week. And this was the birth of Next Advisory. We started from absolute scratch, and we've used the exact templates and tactics that we're going to run you through tonight to grow out our firm and do over $1 million of fees in an industry that is pretty competitive and also pretty boring at times as well. So we're going to take you behind the scenes on that. And the reason that we do this is that we wanted to start from scratch and build the business that we want. And I know a lot of us, we get into the trap of basically having the business that basically is what just happens by default and not necessarily what we want to be happening. So for us, this is about getting very, very clear and setting a direction on where we want to be going. And of course, we find ways to have accountability, much like we suggest our clients do too. Phil and I have obviously got each other, and then we use external support networks as well to hold us accountable. We want to be outsmarting our competitors, which I'm sure you want to be thinking about as well. And really, we want to achieve more than sometimes we think can be possible. And it's all about leveling up as well. And, you know, we probably live in a country where if you set big goals and you're ambitious and you're out there and you're talking about that, it's a little bit frowned upon, and we have that whole tall poppy thing. Well, that can get fucked because we're not big fans of that. And obviously, you know, we're pretty passionate about that too. And we think that if people, you know, they want to have a crack at business and put their house on the line, put their livelihoods on the line, then they should set big goals and they should go after them, and they should get the support that they deserve, and they should get the accolades that they deserve when they have a crack at that too. Now, just a couple of pieces of proof here so that you know that we're not just talking absolute dribble and that you've turned up on a webinar and we're trying to convince you that, you know, we haven't done some of this stuff. Well, give us a Google. You can find different reviews there. There's one from Pete there. Yep, maybe we've used Photoshop. So maybe this one's too good to be true from Josh. That's actually another accountant, but you can go read through those. Yep, maybe we paid someone in India to write these for us, but I was hoping Lainey was actually going to be on the call tonight and she could leave a comment in the chat to say that she genuinely left that review for us. And we've been asked to contribute to a number of different publications along the way as well. And you can go and have a read of some of our thoughts of different things that have happened in the economy and things like that too, if you're massively bored. But before we get started, two things we want you to think about, and this is what we sent out in the email earlier on today. We wanted you to imagine a business that would give you $10,000 in extra cash in 12 months, and a business that would give you 10 hours per month, so 120 hours for the year. Hopefully someone has put some time into imagining what that would be like to either have an extra $10,000 at the end of the year or another 120 hours. If anyone is brave enough, we would love to hear in the chat what you would do with the $10,000 or what you would do with the 120 hours. I can see that there is one piece of chat there that might be Lainey. Lainey genuinely is a human. So anyone got any quick thoughts on what they would do with 10 grand if their business could drop out an extra $10,000 to them, or what they would do with an extra 120 hours in a year? Phil's probably got a couple of ideas. The kids would probably spend it, invest it back in the business. Nice. Get a VA to free me up some time on the business. Smart. Put towards grandparents' visa. That's nice. It's obviously part of a goal to have grandparents here. Bitcoin. Yeah, someone's doing some investing or gambling. Nice one. Time equals surfing. Sweet. Put it towards more sales. So probably reinvest it back into some marketing, invest in sustainable practices and ads. Wicked. Invest in marketing, new trailer for events, focus more time on me, exercise, jet ski, fishing, find some junior filmmakers to make their own projects. Horse racing, Colin.
Horse racing.
I did not tee that up. Yeah. Pay down debt and have more family time, best of myself and my team. So you can see from these answers that, you know, people they're either wanting to put it back into their business, or they are wanting to spend time doing the things that they want to do with that time. And that is interesting because obviously I haven't just drafted this slide on the fly, but that is the main reasons that Phil and I, through the last 4 years of undertaking business planning with clients, the two things that we see that people often want is they want either more money from their business, or they want more time, and they want more time to be able to do the things that they want to do. And really, these two things are an expression of freedom and having a bit more freedom around what it is that you do. And for most entrepreneurial types, or for business owners, they are craving a sense of freedom to be able to be more in control of their life and the choices that they get to make, and not be bound to their desk or a regime of 9 to 5 and just grab the surfboard when they want and go and make the most of that. That's all good and well, but the two main problems that we see with the business owners that we start working with at the start is that usually there's not enough money coming through for the work that they're doing, and they feel like they want to be making more money, and they don't have enough time to do the things that they want to do. So people get caught out building a business, and they never, or a business that they never wanted, rather than a business that they do want. So we can't be everything to everybody, otherwise we get trapped in that cycle. And that is something we're going to be talking about tonight, but it is something that Phil and I see all the time, where people are completely out of control of their business, so to speak, and they're just going through the motions, and from the start they've said yes to every opportunity that has come to them, and they feel like they have to continue to do that because it's what they've always done, and they get a little bit out of whack from the exact reason that they started, and that was to have more freedom. So we're going to have a look at how we can avoid that. Now, what do we do? Well, for us, our why is life-changing advice for aspirational business owners. And, you know, for us as well, that took, I think it was 2 years ago, Phil, when we were business planning. So we were into about year 2 till we like really nailed this for ourselves. And we're like, why do we do what we do? And this is one of the ways that we determine whether we're going to work with clients or not, is, are we actually going to give this client advice that's going to change their life in some meaningful way? And if we're not going to, often we will trust our gut and think and refer them on to another accountant or to somebody that's going to be a better fit for them. So we help business owners improve their business, so it delivers to them the time and money that they want. I'm still admitting people in here a little bit late. We need some virtual press ups or something. So examples of what people want, as I said before, more money, putting time back into their day. They want to be happier in business. They want more clarity around what it is that they want to be doing. And you're probably wondering, okay, well, how do you guys go about doing this? And it's probably no secret now that we're here to talk about planning. And the fact is that us humans love working to a plan. And obviously it sounds so simple, but most businesses don't have a plan, or they say, yeah, I've got a bit of a loose plan. It's in my head. But when you start quizzing people on, okay, what does that look like? how are you going to do it? What things do we need to do to get there? What things do you value? What does an ideal client look like? All of that stuff, there's no detail around it. And usually a plan is just, oh, if I double my revenue, then that's sort of my plan, and I'll be fine. But that's not really a plan. That is a goal out into the future. So our clients who work with us and do and use planning usually outperform the clients who just drift, is what I've got there. And look, everybody has different levels of aspiration, and that's completely fine. Some of our clients that we look after on the accounting side of things, they don't want to do the planning and be held accountable, and they're just happy to do their thing and cruise along in business and stuff, and they make good money and they're happy, and that's completely fine for them. So really, it always comes back to working out what you want and figuring out a way that your business can deliver that for you. So if we can't figure out what we want, then it's hard then to put a plan in place to map out exactly how we're going to do that. So as I said earlier, it's perfectly fine to get very clear on the goals that you do have and the things that you want to be achieving, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. Now, a plan is obviously important to direct action towards desired outcomes and results, helping clients set objectives and ultimately achieving those goals. Having a plan helps you to define the full scope of a project. It provides focus, get everyone on the same page. Massively important when you've got multiple shareholders or different partners involved in a business. Setting goals and objectives regularly, meeting deadlines, a way to measure success, reviewing the entire project from start to finish. Now, we have been sending out this for a long time now. This is our business planning template that we use, and we're going to go into some of these specific components of it. And this template is used by clients who are paying us $15,000 for a year to do business planning with us over a 12-month period, and we're on call for them. So this is the exact template that they have, and we let anybody who wants it download it. And there is no reason why you can't be working and using this very simple one-page template as well. You are missing the action plan piece, which is this slide here, but there's no reason why you can't start writing down some of the actions that you need to take as we go through this as well. And I'll be asking you to do that towards the end. But if you have ideas along the way, then I suggest you write them down. But this is the 2 pages that clients get every quarter when they work with us, and their job is to go away and smash through all of their tasks to keep moving their business forward towards the goals. And often what we find is that by about Q3, they've usually achieved the goals of the 12 months from when they've set those, from when we've done the plan at the start. So we'll look at that a little bit later on as well. But we'll get into one of those key components of the plan, and that is, as we were talking about before, the why, and the why you are in business. And this is probably the most fashionable thing for people to be talking about and overcomplicating and trying to make it this massively sexy thing when it doesn't need to be, because it's down to you to really get clear on why it is that you're in business. And it might be so that you can generate $1 million income. For you, it might be that you can just work 4 hours a day, and that replaces your job that you used to go to, and you're happy with that. Everybody has got a completely different why. And so it's very important that you do spend some time understanding what this is, because often what we see with clients that can't get clear on this is that eventually this process breaks down and they get distracted and they're jumping from one thing to another. And usually it's because they don't know why they are doing what they're doing to start with, and it's not strong enough for them to get them through the patches where a new distraction comes along and they want to start working on that, or things start getting a bit rocky and they think, actually, do I want to be doing this? And that's why we all need to be very, very conscious of the truth around why we are in business and making sure that it ignites our flame. And part of this section is understanding what your vision for the future is. And when we do this with clients, we talk about it over a 5-year window, but it can be longer. But thinking out into 12 months time is often too simplistic for people, because we are then just moving our life year to year rather than thinking, okay, if I consistently keep doing this for 5 years, what do I want to have in 5 years? And often people's answers are completely different to what they are in the next 12 months, because usually in the next 12 months, they're just thinking about immediate things that they would like to win. If they give themselves a 5 or a 10-year window, usually there's all sorts of explosive stuff that comes out around numbers of staff, different arms of the business, 2 weeks off every quarter to go away with the family. It might be a trip to Disneyland. There's all these different things that are building up inside of people that come out when they start to look towards a lot longer window than just 12 months. So take some time for yourself to think about, okay, if I dead set, keep my head down and work on this for 5 years, what do I want to have at the other end of that 5 years? And what do I see my life looking like in 5 years' time? Because a year goes bloody quick, especially in business. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. And our 12-month window is really just about our goals for what we want to be achieving for this next 12 months. And those are just guiding lights for us as to what we should be focusing our attention on in the short term, rather than building out foundations for the longer term. So one of the other pieces to this puzzle is values. And Phil and I have got a nice acronym for ours. Ours is WETG, inspired by our time on the Gold Coast. But it's winning, execution, translator, and genuineness. And what that means for us is that we have a set of values that we live by, and then we can make decisions based on those values. So if we have a situation where we're not sure what to do, often we will go back to our values and say, mate, does this align with our values? And if it doesn't, then we instantly know, cool, we scrap it and we move on. So it gives you a really good framework for decision making. And not enough people actually spend time thinking about this for themselves and for their business. Again, another one of those fashionable things that big corporates print them off, put them on the wall. But if you ask any employee, hey, what are the values of this company? Probably 5% of the employees there could actually answer it. So can you find a way to really sit down and move into your own values and figure out what they are? One of the things that always comes up when we're working with clients when it comes to values is quality. So they've usually started a business or brought a business or got into their area because they want to be good. I mean, they want to be better than good, and they want to provide quality work to people, and that is what drives them. So they want to kick their competitors' ass by being absolutely great at what they do, and a desire to do quality work for people. And I think one of our funnest sessions when doing this was with a couple in an engineering type business, and a big burly bloke, and he just said, look, no fucking rework. You know, that's what we value. No one's going back to do rework. And for him, that was what they prided themselves on. And if they were doing work to a standard where they had to send their staff back to rework the work they were supposed to be doing, then he's like, that's not good enough. We're not living into our values. So it can be very, very simple when you want to start thinking about these things. But definitely as an exercise, you want to sit down and figure out, okay, what are the things that you value? What are the things that people say about you when they describe you? And if they were to describe characteristics, what are things that you value in other people? What happens in relationships that really wind you up, whether that be friendships or clients, and you feel like you've got a value clash there where it might be that, you know, they might be greedy, for instance, and you just don't gel with that, and that's not for you, and they're just trying to clip the ticket on every deal and stuff, and you're just like, no, this isn't what I value. I want to be providing quality work. You know, we're all different, so it's very very important that we get clear on that. So there's a couple of questions there to get you thinking. And one is just always thinking, why did I start this business? And remembering to come back and question yourself on that when you start going through the highs and lows of business and going, right, if a big opportunity comes out of nowhere and it's all exciting and you're unsure, do I do this? Do I not? Go back to, okay, why did I start this business? And too often we forget to stop and ask ourselves that question and then figure out, okay, am I making decisions based on the reason that I started this business? So that's how you can often figure out a piece of your why there as well. And the other confronting one is whether you would be doing this if you won Lotto on Saturday. So say life completely changed and you had $10 million and you could buy 2 Remuera rental properties. Would you be running this business on the Monday, or would you bin the whole thing and go and do something different? It's a very good way to test yourself along the way of, okay, do I really love this? And do I want to spend my time working on this, on solving this problem, providing a business in this space? And the same thing to get you thinking a little bit bigger is just, if often we'll ask clients, okay, if someone walked in the door today and just said, look, here's 100 grand on the table, it needs to be invested into the business. What does the business look like? What things do you want to invest that business in the business? Because it gives you an indication of where you want the business to end up. And usually people would say, oh, I'd hire this person, I'd invest in a bit of marketing, and they've already got ideas about things that they would do. It can be a great way to get your brain thinking about the way or the direction in which you want your business to be going. So a good couple of little probing questions for yourself there. Right, on to the 12-month goals. And this is just very simply what you were thinking about before. So what is it that you want this business to deliver to you in 12 months' time? And we asked you this when you signed up for this, and so many people were very, very clear on the things that they wanted to achieve, which I thought was awesome. And sometimes it can take people quite a bit of time to think about some of the things that they want to achieve. So it's good to see so many people had answers. And I've got a screenshot of some of them here, which we put on social media, excuse me, yesterday. And I just want to run through some of these and talk briefly about them. And as you'll see, the first couple there, double my workforce, my profit, double my net profit from last year. One of the things that we'd challenge you to do is not think about doubling something, because doubling something is a very common and easy way out. And often if you plan to double something, you will just think, okay, well, what have I done in the past? I just need to do more of that. And that's often all you need to do to double something. It's just to go and do more of the things that you've already done, but do them faster and do them more regularly. So we'll say to clients, okay, why don't you think about what that would look like if you times it by 5 or you times it by 10? What things will we need to have in place in order for you to be able to 10x or 5x your revenue or your profit? And all of a sudden, you're starting to think about solving problems that are actually probably further out than 12 months. You're starting to work on them a lot sooner. So don't fall into the trap of just thinking that doubling something will solve all of your problems. I mean, it's great because it's progress, but as we'll learn a little bit later, often when we start doubling things like profit, we find a way to spend them along the way as well, and the money starts to disappear. So see if you can think bigger around that. And then not making my product by hand anymore, by paying myself I'll be paying myself a wage. It was quite common to see people talking about paying themselves and then not paying themselves anything. And it's one of those things in business where it's the chicken and the egg. When do I start paying myself? Do I wait till I get to this profit level before I start paying myself? And we think that you should always find a way to pay yourself something, because a business will always soak up the money that it earns. So there's, you want to have some smarts around understanding how that works, and we'll talk about some of those later. But the longer you forego paying yourself anything, the harder it's going to be for you to decide when the time is right to actually start paying yourself something. Of course, in the early days, you want to be reinvesting money back in and taking a small drawing, but you want to be teaching yourself that it's okay to be paid by the business venture that you are building. And I'd like to increase my monthly recurring revenue so that it covers all my expenses each month. This is a beauty. So this is one where Phil and I would say, sweet, what are your business expenses each month? And a lot of people would stop and go, oh, and that's the first time they'd think about it. So we'd say, why would you come up with a goal to have your monthly recurring revenue covering your business expenses if you don't know what they are? So that's the place to start, figuring out, okay, what are my monthly expenses? Then we get to work backwards with the client. Great, if they're $5,000, what is your sale? What is your service or your goods sell for? How many of those do we need to sell to break even? And then we will show them that, and then we will talk about how we're going to find X amount of those sales. But of course, Phil and I will be suggesting you're not running a business to break even, you're running a business to make profit and to ensure that it's sustainable going forward. So we need to set a bigger goal, not just to break even on our expenses, but to be able to go further than that too. Same thing here with the 150 grand in revenue. We would challenge the client to break this down and go, right, what do we need to do to make $150,000 in revenue? What does that actually look like? And the reason these things are important is it actually helps us break down goals to be smaller chunks so that we can then start putting them into 90-day increments so that they become a lot more achievable, and then we can map out what are the actions we need to take in order to achieve those. Become solely reliant on my company. We love that. Then of course we need to know, what does that actually look like? So, what does solely reliant on that company look like? That would usually be figuring out the same thing as above, how much revenue we're going to need to cover some of the expenses that this person has in their life, in their lifestyle. Acquiring up to 4 key ongoing clients. We love it when people have goals like this, because the poor buggers end up just getting harassed by us for the next 12 months going, where are we at? Have we got them? Why can't we do it? Why is it going to take 12 months? Why can't we do it in a quarter? So we want to figure out, we want to be asking the question to ourselves like, well, okay, what can we do tomorrow to ensure that we start moving forward on this? So why can't we find 4 of these ongoing clients tomorrow? And the answer is probably that we're not backing ourselves to figure out, or to actually have a system to be able to do that. So really, there's probably a system missing that we need to build over the next 12 months, because guarantee this person will get those 4 ongoing clients, and then they'll want 8, and then they'll probably want 16. So the business will change based on how many of these ongoing clients they get. But we need to be building a system to ensure that we get those clients regularly, not just get them and go, okay, I think we're done now. Launch new business arm. Okay, what does a launch look like? What things do we need to actually do to ensure that we are getting this launch going? Too many times we see people who they will, without having the context of what this looks like, they will find all of the things they think are important to the market that they need to do before they would go and launch something. Unfortunately, with most things, like the market doesn't really care. They're too busy doing all the things that they're already busy with and thinking about to notice something being launched that they're really like, oh my God, I've been waiting for that. So it still takes consistent effort over time to launch something. And we had a conversation very briefly with a client today who said, I just need to wait till November to get my branding right, and then I can start going and getting some more clients. I said, Phil and I are going to talk to you about this in more detail next week, but we are not letting you wait an entire month to have your branding perfect when what you do in the market already solves a problem and people want that. You don't need perfect branding to sell what you sell. You need to get in front of people and say, hey, my solution is here. Would you like it? And the answer will be yes. So often we will find these things that we think are so important to the market, but they're actually just barriers to us getting things done. So be very, very careful of those types of things. Hiring an employee, we've got a bit of a section on this later on. I think we could probably do an entire webinar on this alone, because it can be quite detailed, but we'll give you a couple of ways to think about how to go about that and when might be the good time to do that. And the question you want to be asking yourself with hiring someone is basically, well, why not tomorrow? And that will give you a lot of the answers of what needs to be done before you feel comfortable hiring somebody. Now, on to one of our favorite sections of this business plan. Usually we get into this towards the end of our 4-hour session with clients, and we start to quiz them around, excuse me, what they think the biggest roadblock is going to be in order to achieve all of the things that they want to achieve, whether that be in the next 12 months or 5 years. And usually 90% of the time, I could probably say 99% of the time, straight away the client is like, oh, it's me. I'm the roadblock. And it is this revelation where they realize, wow, for the last 3 hours, I've just been building out a plan for my future and realizing that I'm getting in the way of this happening, or I'm the biggest risk to failure here because I don't get out of my own way. So Phil and I did a podcast quite a while ago, and it's episode number 58 if you do want to go and find it, and it's called Are You the Problem? And it's one of our most downloaded and listened to podcasts, and it is something that we still go back and listen to, because honestly, usually at the heart of problems in our business are ourselves and our own problems, and they're just being magnified in a different light in the form of our business. So you want to be thinking about what is stopping you from achieving your goals over the next 12 months. And it sucks to say it, but usually it's just ourselves and our own inaction or lack of clarity around how we're going to do it. So you want to get really clear on this and figure out, what information or tool or gap are we missing that is stopping us from making progress? And again, that question of what's stopping you from doing this tomorrow? And that's going to help you identify the things that you could be doing in order to make sure that you're not the roadblock in your business. Sometimes the answer to this is cash as well, but by the time we've got to this point, we've figured out how to bring more cash into the business. So then it comes back to, okay, is the business owner going to go out there and get the cash? And that's then back on them, whether they're willing to do that or not. So don't be your biggest roadblock. Get out of your own way. Some examples again that people wrote down when they were registering, and this one's an absolute ripper. Thank you to this person who spoke about rostering. We see this all the time with business owners who, it might not be rostering staff. They might be doing the quotes for in the construction space, for instance, or engineering. And there's an area of their business where they're like, okay, this is what I've been really good at, and this is my beast, and it's time consuming, and I'm the one that's got to do it. And it's so hard for them to let go of doing. And we had this exact example with a business that we work with where they had done the rostering for coming up a decade. And I said, does it really need to be you that does the rostering? And to start with, it was, because I know this, and you start justifying all the reasons why it has to be you. And I said, okay, I'm going to give you a challenge over the next 90 days to pretend that you're in hospital and that for 1 week, somebody else has to do the rostering. And you've just got to trust that it that it works over time, and that, there might be some mistakes or there might be some hiccups, but someone will solve it because you're in hospital. And at the end of this 90 days, they said, oh my God, I'm never doing the rostering again. I can't believe I've done the rostering for this long. So often there's something that we're holding on to that we think that that's only us that can do it. And this is a good one, because the question here is, how long is it going to be you that has to do that rostering? When is it going to be the right time to give rostering to somebody else? And if that time never comes, then again, we are the problem. We're the roadblock from putting more time back into our day, from being able to go away. How do we sell the business if we're the one that has to do all the rostering? If we're the only one that knows how to do the rostering, how is somebody going to be able to come along and buy our business? And that's one of the things that Phil and I will speak to clients about too, is we'll say, look, don't just think about this business from yourself and what you want from it. Think about if someone come along and said, hey, I want to buy this business, because it does happen. Are you maximizing along the way the value of this business? There's a couple there about cash flow management, which we're going to talk about that as well. That's very, very common for business owners, so don't feel like you're alone there. And then there's probably about 5 just in that screen grab there, talking about time management. And time management, finding time and getting a balance on everything, making the time to work on things that will grow your business. Time management for me instead of the business. I thought the same person must have filled out the form multiple times, but no, it's just something that we all battle with, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But, unfortunately, we've got to get in control of our time, and we have to become masters of it, because most of us, if you think about our lives, we start and we end up in some form of preschool, then we end up in school, then we end up in high school, then we end up at university. By university, we're starting to get a little bit disrupted about, hey, you've got to control your own study time and things like that. And if you don't show up to this lecture, we don't really care. But we conditioned for so long that here, the bell's going to go off at 9, then it's going to go off at 3. And that's, your life's basically controlled for you. Or you might get into employment and they're like, hey, we need you here at 8:30. You can go at 4:30. Please don't stand around the water cooler too long. But if you do, you're going to have to stay a little bit longer, but otherwise you can go. And we're conditioned to work to these time-bound increments. When we come into business, all of a sudden, we're like, wow, no one's telling me what to do. I'm not really sure when I'm supposed to do this. All this freedom feels really good. And unless we can grasp it and get back in control of our time, often we will lean back on this thought that, okay, I'm not very good at time management. Well, what have you done to practice it? And some of the very simple things you can do are just setting up calendar reminders or reminders on your phone, and to prompt yourself, much like a school bell alarm. 9 o'clock, you need to go into the classroom. Okay, it's 6:30. I need to do 5 prospecting emails. It's exactly the same thing. So use pieces of technology that you already have to your advantage, and set up little things like that can remind you. Block out your calendar and start to build consistent habits that you can use to get back in control of your time. And people have written books about this. There's so much content on it, but if you can identify that is something that is a problem for you, you really do need to spend a bit of time going deeper into exactly what that is, and figuring out how you can fix it. And I see Dan said there, filling out a timesheet on yourself is a great way of looking at your time management and getting better at it. Ain't that the truth? One of the other tactics that people will use is they will say, okay, if I go to the office and I go to work, then this is time that I'm sacrificing away from my family or from my recreation and those types of things. So when I'm at work, I'm going to make sure that I'm working. So everybody's got a different way to balance it, but it is so important to get in control of, because no one apart from your customers is going to be on your ass about, hey, where's my result? Get this done. Right. A bit more on why you can't seem to do the work. And for all of us, we've got to break down, what's getting in the way right now. And Phil and I see this time and time again with clients where they're just bombarded by distractions, and we all are. And everybody's competing for our attention. I'm competing for yours right now. Facebook, Instagram, TV One News, all of these people are vying for our attention because they want to then monetize our attention in some way, whether that be through advertising or through metrics. Everybody has been bombarded with distractions. And so we did a podcast recently, and you can get those on Spotify or any podcast platform if you search the What's Next podcast, and talking about removing distractions out of your life and focusing. And this is something that we're all really, really bad at, because it's so easy to get distracted now, where we think, okay, I don't really want to do this work, or I feel a bit uncomfortable reaching out to this potential new client. And we will go, oh, I might just go get a coffee, or I might just jump on social media quickly, or I might just see how many more cases there are, or there's a cat just turned up in the chat, and I might pat that for a little bit. We're all so good at finding distractions because we've been taught by so many different people now and all these different companies that are chasing our attention that, hey, nudge, here's a distraction, come and spend some time over here. So it might be that you need to turn off notifications off your phone, and look and analyze what are the things that keep distracting me, and start to slowly remove them out of your life and see what that does for you and how much better that is. And the hard truth that sometimes we have to say to clients is, well, if we keep going through this cycle with clients and they're still not doing the work, it really comes back to the thought that maybe you don't want it bad enough. And if you don't want it bad enough, you're not going to do the work. You're going to find distractions. And so that's why the start of this plan starts with, why is it that you're doing what you're doing? And how can you get really clear on that and get up in the morning when you can't be bothered doing this stuff and be like, look, my why is strong. I know why I'm doing this. I just need to do something today that's going to move my business forward. And most people will avoid work when they don't know what it is that they need to do, or they don't have the tools to do it. And if you've ever managed people, you will know what this means, where you will give someone a task to do and you'll think they completely understand what they need to do, and they're just sitting there like, I don't know what I need to do. And so nothing happens. And then they're like, I'm going to go find a distraction. I'm going to go make a coffee. I'm going to go take a 15-minute walk because it's good for my health and all this stuff. When they haven't been taught, look, if you don't know what to do, or if you don't have the tools that you need to do something, you need to tell us, because it's going to be the two main things that stop you from doing what you need to do. So most of the time with the barriers that get in the way for clients and for business owners is that, they don't know what they need to be doing, or they simply just don't have the tools to do the things that they should be doing. So an activity for you to think about there is to sit down for 30 minutes and just brainstorm yourself what it is, that stops you from doing the things that you should be doing. And does it come back to one of those two things? Is it the fact that you don't have the tools, or is it that you don't actually know what it is that you need to do? Because that needs to be solved. So spend some time thinking about that. And as part of that, look at the distractions as well that you let show up into your life, and try and remove some of those and see what impact that has on your life, because it will make a huge difference. What happens is you start to remove distractions. You start to become exponentially more focused, because you start to notice more distractions and you think, oh, okay, Facebook notifications, they're gone, but bloody Instagram are now hitting me. I might turn those off as well. And slowly you start unwinding all these things that you just accepted were just commonplace and we're fine. But really, when you've got shit to get done, they are actually stopping you from doing the things you need to do. Again, this is our 90-day action plan. And hopefully so far, 45 into this, you'll be thinking about some of the things that you need to do over the next 12 months and even in these next 90 days. But make some notes as you go, even just throughout your business journey. Have somewhere where you can document the things that you think you may need to do at some stage, and review those. Set up a calendar reminder every month or every 2 months to go back through your list and go, right, what are the things that I said I was going to do? Have I done them? That's just you holding yourself accountable. But you want to be writing down the things that you need to do. Even if I can't do that right now, start putting it down, because if you have a list of those things, you've got an anchor, and your brain as well will start to figure out ways for you that you can actually break the back of them. Now we're about halfway through here, and just got a little checklist here to figure out whether something is wrong with your business. Now, these are some of the things that Phil and I see all the time, and these are kind of like warning signs that we pick up on. And that might be that you keep adding more and more to your business as it grows, and you just, like I said before, you want to just keep saying yes and yes to everything. You're getting pulled in different directions every day, and that then leads into that time management piece where you think, like, I just don't have enough time to do the things that I've got. And you don't have the time to build the systems and introduce technology and things like that are going to save you time. But that's the thing that you need to do to get your time back. So it's such a catch-22, is that clients will say, oh, I've been meaning to introduce or implement this software. It's going to save me some time, but I just don't have the time to do it. And we're like, yeah, sorry, that's the wrong way around. That's why you need to do it. We need to stop doing everything else and just let the carnage build up for a bit and do the thing that's going to save you time, going forward. Phil and I, for instance, we use Calendly, which is pretty common now, where people will book a time to talk to us, and it stops the back and forth between, okay, what time are you free? Well, I'm free at this time, and let me just check and come back to you. You give someone the link and they book into your calendar and they get a confirmation, and it just solves so much of the back and forth. And those types of technology are awesome for business owners to be able to put time back into their day. So we want to be looking for those types of things that can help you, and go study people that are ahead of you in the game or that are bigger, and try and run through their service line and be like, look, what are they doing? What technologies are they implementing? Why would they be doing that? Because they'll probably solve some of these things for you as well. So don't be afraid to have a look and cherry pick some of the things that are going to help you. And like I say, that you can't afford to invest in your business to make more money, and realistically, you can't afford not to. And this is something we'll see all the time. This is probably something that marketers deal with a lot more. People will say, look, I just need to make X amount more money, and if I get X amount of clients, I'm going to do that. And the market will say, okay, well, that's going to cost you $3,000 to make that 10 grand. And they'll say, well, I just can't afford that right now to spend that $3,000. And the conversation is like, well, so how long are you going to give yourself to be able to afford it? You're not going to solve this problem unless you spend this money. So how are you going to get the confidence that it's okay to put your hand in the pocket and invest in your business to actually make that back? You become a slave to hundreds of tasks that you have to do every day, and you probably resent those as well. Your business isn't providing you with what you want it to provide you, and that's, can piss you off too. You start to fall out of love with your business, and the people around you suffer. You might start building a bad working environment or even family environment, or you're just constantly like whinging about, your clients or the things that are happening in business, or your staff and things like that. And those things are going to affect your results in business and also in other areas of your life, because business and life, cross over so much. So remember that less is more. If you start feeling yourself having some of these business symptoms, then remember that you want to try and remove some of the things that aren't helping you. And remember, less is more, and focus on what you're good at, and go back to thinking about, why did I start this business in the first place, and what do I want out of it? Now, being accountants, you would think that we would probably have slides and slides on numbers, but we're not going to do that tonight, because again, much like hiring someone, it probably requires an entire university degree and chartered accounting certificate and all sorts, but we don't want to bore you with that. But here's some critical things that you do need to be able to understand. And one is your break-even point. Now, this is the point at which you match your expenses with your sales. And if you can't, if you don't know how to calculate this, or if you don't know what your expenses are, then you can get yourself into trouble, because you're not going to know if you're going to be going backwards or whether you're actually keeping up with the expenses that you have. So spend some time researching a break-even point and understanding what expenses you have in your life, both in your business and personally, and you can start to build revenue targets based off of that. Now, bottom-up analysis is really fun to do. It's part of the plan. We're not going to go into it too deep tonight, but basically, clients will target a profit that they make, so profit they want to take home at the end of the year, and then we will get them to work backwards and say, okay, if your expenses for the year are going to be this amount, so that includes hiring the office and all these different things, and then your margin is X amount, so what you're making via selling your good or your service, and how many of those are you going to need to sell in order to cover all of those expenses and then drop out that profit. And very good, as Phil calls it, a sniff test to figure out whether the goals we're setting ourselves around the number of things we want to sell, whether it's actually going to be doable to do that. And we've done content on this previously, so if that's something that really speaks to you, we can dig that out for you as well. And that's understanding markup and margin. Specifically, if you're selling goods, you need to understand that, but it's something that we all need to be thinking about, because if we're selling something and it's costing us to sell that, we need to understand what does it cost us to sell something, so that we can know what margin we need to put on it in order to generate a profit. So this shirt, for instance, if I was to sell this shirt, but it cost me $50 to make, and I only sold it for $50, well, I'm only breaking even. But if I sold it for $100, my margin is going to be $50 because it's cost me $50 to make, and I've been able to sell it for $100, so I've got a $50 margin. So margin, very, very important for people to understand. You don't need to be a CFO or a CA or a title or in the C-suite or all this shit to understand these things. It's mission critical that you do understand what margin your goods or services have in them. And if you start dealing with the banks, they want to see some understanding of you and from you that you understand these types of things. So don't blindly go to a bank without understanding how these things work. You probably then, if you feel like you're a bit like that, you might want to get a mortgage advisor or someone like that, in your corner, but especially an accountant if you're going to be borrowing for the business rather than just a house. But of course, we've got these great online accounting softwares these days with MYOB and Xero, and they can drop out live data on how your business is performing. So they're tracking constantly how much GST you've got to pay, how much profit you've got year to date, and things like that. And you want to be, again, setting a calendar reminder to go into your accounts and your software and have a look and go, right, are we actually profitable? How much were our sales? And if you don't have a process like that, then you want to reach out to your accountant or somebody that can help you understand those things, because it's much like weighing yourself on the scales. If you're heading in a direction where you're trying to hit a target, you're going to be wanting to check, am I making progress towards that? And your profit and loss and your numbers in your accounting software is basically just a lagging indicator of whether the actions that you're taking are leading you towards success. Now, we want to give you a couple of really simple templates that you can use if you want to forecast out your cash. This is a weekly cash flow forecast, and we'll send a link so that you can download this, and there's instructions in it. Phil built it from scratch, and he loves this, so you shouldn't be able to break it, and a lot of our clients use it. But you can map out each week how your cash position is looking. So if you've got money coming in, less all the cash that's going out, and it will give you a running balance of how much money you're going to have left at the end of each of those weeks. Some people don't want to do it weekly. They might just want to plan out over a month, and that's completely fine. We've got this one here as well, which goes month to month, and it's got some mock figures in it. So you can see how it works, and you can play around with those, and you can make a copy out of Google Sheets or download a copy and put it into Excel, whatever it is that you prefer to use. But you want to be forecasting out your cash position so that you know if you're going to be running into trouble, and seeing what your closing bank balance is going to be. This is what banks are doing when they are forecasting out whether they're happy to lend money to you, whether that be for the business or on the home front as well. But you might not want to do that stuff and you think that's too complicated. Well, at least do what we're about to tell you over the next few minutes. And this is what most people do with their cash when they're in business, is they get, how good are my diagrams here? You get your cash in this big blue check, and it goes into your business bank account, and that's the end of it. That's absolutely the end of it. And that is methodology that is probably adopted by 50% of business owners across the country, and it is just leading people into massive trouble, because what they do is they just see the business bank account as all the money that they've got, and they've got no idea about GST, tax, like all these types of things. And so we put together about a 20-minute training that you can watch, and it's how to manage your cash better. I'll include a link tomorrow for you to be able to watch that if you haven't previously. But in a nutshell, here is what you want to be doing. If, say, you pulled in $11,500, so say you invoiced out $11,500, it's money back in, and that goes into that business bank account. Straight away, you want to have a tax account set up. So that's our red circle there. And we know that that's that 11.5 grand is $10,000 plus GST. So we want to put the $1,500 into our GST and tax account, because we know, well, that's not mine. You know, that's GST and I'm collecting it for the government. So I don't want to spend that. And then I'm going to put 2 grand aside for income tax as well, just working off a nice simple percentage of 20%. And then I'm going to put, I'm going to be left with $7,700 that I've got for business expenses, because I've been very, very smart and put $300 off into an account called my shit hits the fan account. Now that is an account that builds up nicely for you to be able to call upon should things come up where you haven't been expecting them. So it could be a random business expense, or it could be the big C word that we're currently in at the moment. And it just gives you a nice little buffer. And people don't do this because they think, well, things aren't, they're not going to happen and I can't be bothered, or they put it in there and then they end up dipping into it and all those types of things. But what we find with the business owners who build up a buffer of cash is that they gain confidence and they are happier when they are faced with bigger decisions to make, because they've got some money that they can fall back on should they want to. But leaving the shit hits the fan account alone and just looking at this differently, now we've got $1,500 set aside for GST. So when our GST bill comes, we're always going to have enough money to pay GST, because we've been putting the entire income portion aside into a separate account. And of course, we can claim some GST expenses. So by the time we contra those out as such, we're going to have a smaller amount of GST to pay, but we've got that sitting in that account. And then we've been putting a nice 20% amount across for income tax as well. And when our accountant tells us, hey, you've got this amount of tax to pay, we're going to say, well, sweet, I've been putting that aside in my tax account the whole time. So I've got a nice buffer of cash in there, plus the difference between the GST amount that you are taking off the invoices and then the amount that you ended up paying over to the IRD. And you've only been spending for the business out of this green circle. And that is the money that is ultimately the business's to spend. So our 11.5 grand, all of a sudden from the slide before, goes from straight into the business account to getting washed around, and we lose the whole lot and we don't know what we're supposed to have done. Now we're only actually got $7,700 of that 11.5 grand. So if you take one thing from this and you're not doing this, then tomorrow go and set up shit hits the fan account and go and set up a separate tax account. And Phil and I, we do this. We still do this. So it is good enough for us, good enough for you. 2 important lessons to think about when it comes to money. 1, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. So that's investing, paying down debt, storing some ammo, so building up that shit hits the fan account. If Phil and I had $1 for every time we've seen businesses that have one good month in business and go and spend like they've had a good year in business, well, I don't know what we'd be doing. We'd probably be doing more of these. We'd just have a bigger marketing budget to get the information in front of more people. But a very good saying for you there, be very careful. If you have one good month in business, it doesn't mean you're going to have a good year in business. And this is what we can be very prone to do. We have a great month and think, right, I'm going to go buy the car, or I'm going to go finance this, or I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z. So it sounds a bit harsh, but you haven't earned it yet. Put some runs on the board. Do it for 5 months, for 6 months. Back it up. See if you've really got it in you, or see if it was just an outlier of a month. So before you just rush off and go and undo all the good work and get yourself into the debt trap, make sure you can consistently do this and apply some discipline. Now, your target is to invest more, not just to make more. Now, what that means is that you want to be thinking about what you're going to do with the cash that is left over, because often we will just spend everything that we have, whether that be what the salary is that we're paying ourselves or what money that's coming into the business. So we want to be thinking about, okay, if I'm going to be making profit and I can pull this out of the business, how can I grow the amount that I can invest into different things? And that might be into different stocks, or you might be into crypto, or you might be reinvesting it back into the business as such, or a rental property, or whatever you choose to invest in. How can you think about increasing the amount that you invest rather than just the amount that you make? Because so often we see that business owners just match their spending based on what it is that they are bringing in terms of income. Now, when did you last review your prices? This is one that Kiwis love to avoid because it's very scary to think about changing our prices, and we're worried what people are going to think about that. Well, from the work that Phil and I have done with clients around this, it is a very small percentage of clients who actually push back and say, hey, no way, I'm not paying that. So be very mindful of your own limitation towards increasing prices when you're in the position where you need to do that. And at the moment, prices continue to rise and things are getting more and more expensive. Paid $2.63 for petrol the other day. I'd say it'll probably be $3 by Christmas, hopefully not. Everything just seems to be getting more expensive, and our clients are talking about how they're getting letters and emails to say that prices are going up. And if you don't understand that and what that's doing to your margin, then it's going to eat into your margin if you're not reviewing the prices that you are charging yourself. So we've put together a cheat sheet here, which we won't open up and go into, but I'll send that out tomorrow. And it's got about 5 different templates of things that if you get to a position where you think you need to increase your prices, well, then you can lean on those things. You can copy and paste them, you can edit them. And I know Lainey, who's in there, her example is even in here. We worked through that together, and she can probably tell us in the comments how many people came back to her and said, no, I'm not prepared to pay for to pay what you're now asking. And it's often a lot smaller percentage than what we think it's going to be in our heads when it comes to increasing our prices. So don't be scared of that, and we'll give you some tools there that you can use to your advantage there. Now, how do I know when I can hire? Now, this came up a lot in terms of the questions that people when they answered the questions to register, and I've put here that this is usually a good indication that you already should have hired. Now, what that means is that if you're thinking, how do I know when I can hire? You're obviously thinking that you need to hire. So perhaps it's just about you pulling the trigger. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, it is what information do you need to make a decision? What's the gap that's not currently allowing you to give yourself the confidence that you can hire somebody? So most people that Phil and I work with that think, maybe they want to hire their first staff member, and they think, okay, Luke and Phil, I just need to get to X amount of money, or X amount of monthly income, or whatever it is, and then I'm going to be good to hire somebody. And we sort of challenge them and say, well, really, if you are prepared to spend Y, and that is whatever it's going to cost to hire them, then they're going to do the things that you don't want to do and that you're procrastinating on and that are draining your energy. And that's going to free up your time, and it's going to give you more time to think and to actually spend time making more money. And that's the whole reason that people end up employing people, right? So if you're asking yourself, or you're asking out loud, like, how do I know when I can hire? Perhaps this is the indication that you should have already hired. Now, I would say here that we would want you to have a good understanding of your numbers before just blindly going and hiring someone. So you want to actually make sure that you're profitable, and that you're going to be able to sustain this payment, because we don't want people to come into a job where they think they're naively going to be safe, and then all of a sudden you realize, like, oh, we're not even making any money, and I had no idea, and I don't have a job for you anymore. We're not into that, and people aren't either. So you want to treat it with a lot more respect than that. So you want to be working with your accountant to understand the financial side of it. But if you are asking that question, it's usually a good indication that you either need to be doing that very soon, and if you aren't financially at the point where you can, if that's the advice you get from an accountant, for instance, or from you understanding your own numbers, we need to do some of the work that allows you to be able to do it. And this is I've got this line here. I wish I hired someone sooner. 10,000 Kiwi business owners. This happens all the time where people end up hiring someone and say, wow, I wish I had done that sooner. So questions to ask yourself, why are you asking this question, and whose permission do you need, and what information do you need to make a decision? Is it just that you're scared of employing someone, or what that process is? Because that's a different question of how do you know when the right time to hire someone is. That is, I don't know what the process is to employ someone. And it can be scary because there's all sorts of different things you need to think about, but there's a lot of information online and out there from people these days that you can go and do the bulk of that, or you might even know someone in business that's gone through the hiring process. Ask them, hey, I'm thinking about employing my first employee. What things would you have done differently? Could I chew your ear for half an hour and just find out some of your lessons? Now, who should you hire? And this is an exercise that we love doing with clients. It's called Hate It or Love It. And this is a real photo from one of our clients called Girls Get Off. Give them a Google, especially the ladies out there. And they were doing the love-hate list on a giant whiteboard. And basically, all you have to do is write down the things that you love doing and write down the things that you hate doing. And this is a very, very powerful exercise because it identifies for you all of the things that drain your energy and that you normally will be like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, or you've got that on my list of things to do. It's usually the things that you don't want to do. And your love list will leave you with the clues of the things that you're good at and that actually energize you, and usually the reason that you got into business to start with. As an example, there's a lot of people that get into the digital marketing space and they love meeting with clients, they love getting them the results, they love the sales, they love the face-to-face piece. When it comes to doing the campaigns and running them and optimizing them and stuff, after a while they're like, I hate doing this, and they end up outsourcing that part of it. So everybody's going to be different, but this is a very, very simple exercise. One piece of paper, rule it down the middle, love on the left, hate on the right. Particularly powerful to do if you've got multiple business owners or partners in a business, because you can see what people want to be doing, and then you can basically create a role for someone to do those things. And often we think, oh, but no one's going to want to do the things that we hate. But often the things that we hate doing are the things that somebody else loves doing. So this exercise has been something that a number of our clients have done. It's led to new hires, people being more fulfilled in business, light bulb moments, processes, introductions of technology, and the list just goes on and on. So don't think that it's so simple and that there's no point in doing it. Now, here is another critical component of this plan, and that is around ideal clients. Now, I've seen someone in the chats already said that this is really hard to understand. So we're going to give you a couple of things to think about in order to get clearer on this. But just got there that people don't buy things, they buy future versions of themselves. And it's very, very important for you to understand that, because often when we're in business, we get stuck or deep into what we're doing and we think, right, I'm selling books, I'm selling pens, I'm selling drink bottles, I'm a lawyer, I'm an accountant, all these things. That is not what people ring and ask you for. They don't ring and say, hey, can I please buy an accountant? Oh, I want a drink bottle. What do you want a drink bottle for? Well, I need to carry water because I need to hydrate myself so that I don't die on this bike trip that I'm going on. Like, people have a reason for wanting your product or your service, and it's because they want the future version of themselves. They don't just want the good or the service that you sell. And if you can understand that, it's a lot easier to help yourself understand what it is that people are coming to you for and why they're going to choose you over other people and why they're going to spend with you. So as an example, in our space, for instance, there's accountants, there's business advisors, and they're sort of crossing over, and everyone's calling each other, calling themselves different things, and it's probably confusing for the market. And then we've got financial advisors and KiwiSaver advisors, mortgage advisors, and now accountants are calling themselves advisors as well. And that's really confusing for people, but people are coming to either us or to our competitors, and for instance, and they're saying, look, I need someone to help me become the future version of myself. I want to be a better business owner. I want to be the business owner that can pay myself $180,000 for the year. I want to become that version of myself. Can you help me do that? They're not saying, hey, I want an accountant. That's not what it is. There's more to it. So figure out what it is that you can do to help people become the future version of themselves that they want, and you will nail this ideal piece a lot faster. Now, of course, we can just think about who it is that we want to work with and who we don't want to do work with. It's also a good way to think about these ideal clients. And another exercise to go through is to figure out, why is it that ideal clients are choosing to work with us? What is it that they're saying about us? Ask them, how come you chose us rather than somebody else? If maybe someone was going to 3 different people and asking them about their service and they chose you, you want to find out, get that feedback. Why is it? What is it about what we do that ensured that you came with us rather than somebody else? Now, on this slide here, we've got the Pareto Principle, and I'm a big fan of this. And so as Phil, we've used it a number of times through different exercises with clients, but often 20% of our effort will turn into 80% of our results. And sometimes 80% of our revenue will come from 20% of our clients. And 80% of our issues from clients will come from 20% of them. So this is a very, very powerful principle to continue to come back to and go, when you start saying things to yourself like, I'm just so sick of my clients. Are you sick of 80% of them or 20% of them? Probably 20% of them. And is it 20% of them that are causing you the trouble? Is there some answers in that? Are there some that you love working with? And is that only 20% of them? Are some of them bringing you large fees, but that's only 20% of them? You want to go through and look at all of your customers you have and look at the ones that are ideal to you and start to profile those out. And I think people expect that this exercise of understanding the ideal client should just be like, right, I'm going to spend 5 minutes and I'm going to know my ideal customer. If you've been going for a while, you've got data, you've got things that you've done for people that have really filled you up, that have filled them up, and they've spent money with you, or they've had different expectations. You can go back and look and start to profile what those things are. So remember this principle and use it to your advantage. There's often, you could spend a lot of time answering frequently asked questions, for instance, when you could basically understand, well, 80% of my clients are asking the same thing. Maybe I need to put something together that's going to stop that happening. So you can use it to problem solve a lot, and you can do that for your customers and your costs as well. Now, a bit of fun from last week. We just remember that we don't have to say yes. And part of that is understanding the people that we don't want to work with. Now, you can go through an exercise with a marketing agency to figure out your ideal client, and you'll probably spend thousands of dollars. I've seen invoices to do exactly this. But here's 3 steps that can help you save a lot of money. 1 is to make a list of all of your customers if you're in business already. 2 is take a highlighter. And 3 is to highlight the ones that you say, oh, fuck, not such and such, when the phone rings or an email pops up, because realistically, that's unfair on them. If you're servicing them with that sort of mindset, then they're probably not an ideal client for you, and they're probably better served by somebody who they will be an ideal client to. So these are often the opposite of your ideal clients. And this can happen. outgrow relationships, our values end up conflicting across different things. There's just things that come up over the time of relationships. And when Phil and I had school rebates, we saw this with some parents who would send in emails that were just scathing and just very bad. And we would say, hey, look, we've solved this for you. We would just ask that you please don't use our service again. And we word it really nicely. And most of them would end up apologizing, because people don't say that. No one's brave enough to be like, hey, look, we just want to let you know that we never want you to come back again, and do it very nicely. And they're like, oh, shit. So don't be afraid to do that for people that aren't treating you well. I mean, obviously, you need to be very careful how you do that, but there's a very gentle way that you can move on clients that you aren't gelling with anymore, and just say, hey, look, this is where we're going with our business, and I'm not sure that we're going to be the best fit for you, and we'd rather find somebody that will be. And they'll appreciate that. So don't be scared to do it. And Blake's just said in the chat there, we do this monthly. Best thing about it is the excitement the team get from breaking up with tiresome customers. There you go. So you never know the impact that it's having on your staff as well. So a very good exercise is to go through and figure out who you don't want to be working with as well. Now, I know there was quite a bit in there around how do I find another ideal customer? How do I find a client? And I just wanted to give you a couple of hacks that I hope someone's brave enough to go away and try one of these things, because they work, and I can guarantee you that. And I'll give you a couple of examples in a second. But, if you've got ideal clients and customers that you can identify, then use your current customer base and ask them and say, hey, do you have any friends or acquaintances in the same industry that would be looking for this solution? Because people are cliquey and they hang out with the same types of people. It's just what we're like as humans. So if you've got clients that trust you and love you, be brave to ask them, hey, do you have anyone you could introduce us to? And ask for referrals for people that you're doing really good work for as well. Use your social media channels. A lot of people think that you just don't want to be posting too much on social media, or you just want to make sure you've got social media, but you don't need to be posting anything. But those channels are there for you to use them. Otherwise, they use you. So think about how you can use your social channels yourself. And I've got there as well, ask clients for reviews. And I know this is massive in the mortgage space, for instance, and people will, including ourselves as well, we'll turn reviews, much like I did at the start of this webinar, we'll repurpose them and turn them into content. And you never know what touch point or review is going to get someone to trust you and believe in what it is that you're doing. So don't be afraid to ask for reviews as well. If you haven't asked for reviews in the past, put that on your list. That's something you could be doing. Of course, you could be exploring some paid marketing, but we would always suggest that you've got strong fundamentals sorted first, because if you don't have a way to follow up with leads or contacts that a marketing agency delivers to you, often that you can waste a lot of money. Because I think people think, okay, a marketing agency is just going to get me, say, 50 emails, and I'm just going to email each of them, and they're going to be like, yep, I'd love to, use Luke and Phil as my accountant. You'll probably find 90% of them won't even reply, or 20% of them go, well, I don't even remember filling this form out. So be very, very careful if you don't have the fundamentals set up before you believe a marketing agency telling you that they can get you the leads and it'll be worth it. Yep, they probably can, but you want to have some good systems in place as well. You could, of course, build an outreach strategy utilizing your own LinkedIn and Facebook groups. They've both got massive organic reach. You could look for a Facebook group that is aligned with whatever it is that you buy and sell, and you could use that to do market research. Or if you're brave enough, you could go and start messaging people out of that group. That's very, very common in America. And eventually Facebook will stop the amount of people that you can message, but you want to build a good strategy if you're going to go about doing something like that. But the hack there as well that we all forget is our own personal social media. Now, these people all trust you. They know what you do. They believe in you. And we completely forget and neglect to say, hey, everybody that trusts me and knows who I am, this is what I'm doing now. Does anybody know somebody who needs X, Y, and Z? And I can just about guarantee you that if each of you go away and do this, you will find a solution to a problem you have in your business. Phil and I, for instance, this is how we found Jade to work for us at Next Advisory. Is I put a post on my social media, said to Phil, hey mate, here's what I'm thinking about posting. What do you think of this? What am I missing? Let's make sure it's really clear. Whacked it up, got about 10 likes or something. Most of my mates are like, okay, cool story, mate, good on you. And then got a message from someone saying, I've got the perfect person. I'll do an introduction for you, bang. And what this does is it gives you a natural filter, because these people that you're connected with on social media, if it's your friends on Facebook and whatnot, they already know who you are and how you operate. So they're going to bring you somebody that really is going to align with you. So don't neglect doing that. So there you go. That's a very, very mission critical, is to be able to figure out ideal clients and get yourself closer to them. Now, we'll start to wrap up soon, but one of the things that Phil and I always hear and that we see with clients that start working with us is they say that, they can appreciate that they don't know what they don't know. And it's so true for all of us. We just don't know what we don't know. And who do you have in your corner that you can ask questions? And this is, I guess, the unfair advantage that Phil and I have, is that we get to look under the bonnet of so many different businesses every week and see who's doing what, see what's working well, and see what's not working well, and provide suggestions based on that as well. Having a good accountant or advisor gives you a massive advantage due to the network of information they have as well. On the weekend, I had a mate who's gone back to uni and is studying marketing, and he's like, mate, you wouldn't know what a billboard costs in Auckland City, do you? And I'm like, I don't, but a client will. And within 5 minutes, I had a pricing pack from one of the marketing agencies here. And he was like, sweet, holy shit, I didn't realize they were that much, but cool, I can carry on with my assignment. So remember that sometimes the problems we have are just one person away from solving them, and we don't need to be the person that solves them. So, who can you get around you that you can lean on to help you solve some of these things faster? And of course, you've got two options. You can go it alone, and it's probably going to be slower for you. You're going to make some mistakes. It's going to be expensive along the way. Phil and I have tried this with a few different things, especially in the marketing space, and it will be painful, especially if you don't have someone to lean on, or you can find someone to do it with, and that's going to be faster. It's going to be less mistakes along the way, and it's going to be cheaper and a lot more fun as well. Oh, there's still people joining the webinar. There we go. A little bit late, but in terms of those who want to go at it together, if you do want to explore doing some of this work with Phil and I, there's Mikey. Mikey does. He's due for his review very soon. We can dive into some 90-day action planning with you, or you can get a bit more intensive and go through that process over a 12-month journey as well. A lot of the people that do the 90-day work end up pushing that out over further time as well. Outcomes, you're going to be looking for more clarity, clear goals and vision, as we've spoken about, define tasks and actions to get you moving forward, and progress towards your 12-month plan and goals. And often we introduce clients to people who we know that they need to be speaking to. It could be people in HR, health and safety, marketing, automation, across all those different things. So like I said before, once you've got someone in your corner that has had the look under a number of different bonnets, they can suggest things that are going to speed up your journey for you as well. And it's all about building stronger business foundations. Now, we can book a time to have a chat. I'll send out a link for that tomorrow for those that do want to have a chat as well. And we can look at your current situation and provide some ways to improve your business and see if this methodology is going to work for you. We don't work with everybody as such. Obviously, we've got a very tight ideal client who we work with, and would run you through a few questions to make sure we'd be a good fit for where you're at as well. We don't want you spending money with us if it could be better spent elsewhere. And this isn't for side hustles. No, nothing against side hustles, just that we're only taking on clients who are established at the moment, and I can appreciate that a number of you are in that side hustle and startup space as well, and that's completely fine. And we're glad that you're here and getting some of these tools too. But in terms of working with us, we're just looking for established businesses at the moment, and would ask that you've got a desire to have a better business and pull out a bigger profit, and of course action takers as well. So we'll send out a link if you do want to book a time to have a chat tomorrow, then we can do that. I do want you right now to think about what 3 actions you can take based off of the information that we have gone through in the last 90 minutes. I've just about timed it to absolute perfection and left us with half an hour for Q&A if anyone does have some questions as well. So if anyone's brave enough, chuck it into the chat. What things are you going to go away and do off the back end of this? Of course, ideas are great, but execution always trumps it. So I'd love to see some of the things that people have been thinking about over this last 90 minutes that they're going to go away and take some action on. And hopefully you can move the needle of your business and get yourself closer towards that desired space. Colin, the 80-20, good stuff. Joe said, are there tax implications if you pay a finder's fee? That might be back to hiring someone, was it? But we have to explore that. Hopefully there's more than just one person going to do the 80-20 exercise. But we have plenty of time. We're going to stick around if you do have questions as well. So we'll make sure that Phil's still awake. He's not just I thought he might have put up a photo backdrop of himself to make it look like he was there, but create my love-hate list, good stuff, Taylor. Ideal client, good. So important for us to always be thinking about. Phil and I have spent a lot of time fleshing out the ideal client piece. Melissa said, finalise shareholders agreement, push the FIL for a date, write a plan, understand margin. Thanks, guys. Have put my daughter to bed. Okay, good stuff. Cash flow, SWOT, outsourcing, virtual staff, father-in-law. Oh yeah, got it. FIL, definitely the love-hate. I think I hate editing. Nice. That can unlock so many things for people. Love, hate, wicked. Hate editing. Well, Ben can do the editing task, so that's fine. Automation, wicked. You're already pretty good at that, to be fair, Amy. But yeah, there's so many things out there. We had a really good contact in the automation space, and then we sent him too much work, and he's been he's tapped out now. It's very hard to find talented automation specialists in New Zealand. Oh, it is Ben. Okay, Ben hates editing. Okay, so Ben just said that he hates his whole process in this job, but that's good. You can outsource that to somebody, surely. Do you move problem clients on that are good for revenue? Yes, we do, Colin. And revenue is not a metric for us, and that is what their revenue is, and then that is what they are worth to us as such in terms of a revenue. We're more looking for people that are on a journey and aspirational and really meet our set of values as well. Problem clients are never good for revenue. It's true, because what does happen too is that if I get upset about something, often it's not clients. Like, we're pretty good with our clients, like we're very lucky, but it's might be people in our network, for instance, and then sometimes Phil and I will be like, mate, we've just spent 20 minutes discussing this. We probably, if we unfollowed them or if we just didn't engage with that, we wouldn't do it. So they become a distraction and a time waste. Carmen, love, hate, and reach out to people to ask if they know anyone in a similar position to understand their pain points and how we assist. That's so smart. One thing I forgot to mention all of that is a good hack as well. When you are reaching out to people, if you say, do you know anybody that? So don't just ask them, like, do you need this? Because then they only think about themselves. So if you say, do you know anybody who needs a mortgage, for instance? It's a completely different question to the brain than, do you need a mortgage? Because they go, no, I've got one, I don't need one. But if you say, do you have anybody that's thinking about buying a home that's going to need a mortgage? They'll go, I had a conversation with such and such last week. So use that one to your advantage too. Someone asked earlier about where they could get the podcast. That's the What's Next podcast on any podcast platform. There's over 100 and something episodes to get through there. any other questions from anybody? Phil, did you have any takeaways, mate, or any light bulb moments or any things to add?
Mate, that's just a 10 out of 10 performance as usual.
Thank you.
But well done. The one thing that I would emphasize through the whole business planning thing, and I did make a note, is don't underestimate the time and benefit in spending in really clarifying your vision and values. You know, and I think you touched on at the beginning, we came up with our why originally, and then there's probably been 2 or 3 versions since, and it wasn't till probably year 2 or 3 rather, that we 100% locked that in. But we were working with a client last month, and they were asking some decisions on an online meeting that I was scratching my head at, that if they were 100% clear on why they were in business, their vision, their values, and what they wanted to achieve out of that business, it would have meant that they would have been able to make better and faster decisions. And that's really one of the key outcomes to this whole process.
Yeah, nice. There's that good saying too about, you know, there are no unreasonable goals for entrepreneurs, they're just unreasonable timeframes. And Phil and I saw this in action where clients borrowed money from the bank. I think it was over 20 years, and they paid off the loan within 5 years. And it was like, holy shit, you know, they worked really, really hard. And it was a goal for them they were like, look, we've taken this loan over 20 years, but we're not settling for that. We're going to pay it off in 10. And they'd clocked it in under 5 years. And it was just phenomenal to see. And awesome to see what people can put their mind to. Grace says, are you going to host follow-up more in-depth webinars we can tune in on? Yeah, I think we're going to put together something quarterly going forward. We might ask you guys tomorrow when we send out an email to follow this up and just say, are there any other things that you'd like us to go into? I mean, it's hard to really cover off business planning in depth in 90 minutes. You know, when Phil and I do these sessions one-on-one with a client, it's 4 hours at a minimum. And then we usually have some lunch after as well. So, you know, we really hone in on the exact areas that the business needs to be working on, but this should give everybody a really good understanding of the key things that you need to be thinking about and need to be able to understand, because, you know, it's a fast moving world out there, and you want to get good at understanding exactly who it is that you help, why it is that you do this, what things you value, what things are just crossing the line and you're not going to accept in business, and ways to go about achieving the things that you want to achieve, and ways to sell your vision to people as well. Because I noticed that in a little bit of the pre-work for this, a number of people mentioned imposter syndrome, or not quite having the belief in some of the things that they were doing. And ultimately, you're the person that's going to be able to solve that for yourself. And usually that comes out of getting more results. And that's a choice when you let go of that. So, you know, it doesn't need to stick around forever. Stuart says, how do you handle businesses who are in the service side, hairdressers, beauty, etc., who are trying to fill appointment gaps due to the current environment? Well,
write a letter to the Prime Minister until we get out of level 3.
Yeah, that's very tricky. But one thing that is awesome in the beauty space is technology, and the businesses that have implemented technology really well in terms of repeat reminders, making sure people turn up, getting people scheduled in, and having people being able to book themselves in. It is phenomenal what money can drop out of some of those businesses with really slick technology, and then driving enough people towards that, and it can save people a lot of time. So as a very simple example, you know, we had someone who was taking bookings back and forth through Instagram for beauty services, and we're like, okay, we're going to give you a date to work to, and you're never going to do that again, okay, because there's just so much back and forth, and there's a huge risk that you don't get their business because you don't reply fast enough, because you're doing a treatment or you're busy doing something else, and 80% of business goes to the person who responds first, usually. So they're going to bounce off to another beauty provider and go, oh, sorry, you didn't get back to me, I've already booked in And so if you can provide a way that people can book straight in using technology, then you're going to close more and fill up those gaps, and you're not even having to do the work to go back and forth. And these people are just crushing it via Instagram and social media and building up organic followings and pushing out content to them and pushing out reminders. And it's probably something we all need to be thinking about doing. How do you flatten
the one thing that you didn't mention, which I was surprised about, was the Strengthsfinder stuff?
Well, probably another couple of hours for that. My favorite. Yeah. So what Phil's talking about there is the Clifton Strengthsfinder, and it's a US-based personality type assessment, and it gives you a list of your top 34. Well, there are 34 strengths, and the methodology is that you look at all of the things that you're really, really good at, and it tells you that, and you focus on using those to your advantage rather than through traditional education and schooling. It is, hey, here's your report. These are the things you're bad at. You really need to get better at them. Otherwise, you're not going to go far in society. And realistically, the people that go the furthest are the people that focus more on their strengths and get really good at it, and then understand their weaknesses and their weak spots and get people to help them bridge that gap. So the Strengthsfinder test has been done by tens of millions of people. It costs you about $90 New Zealand, I think, to drop you out with a report. Excuse me. You can go further and get a coach. I've done coaching in that space, so it's Phil and I together and individually, and you can hone in on the things that are really you, and get good at those, and they can really give you some answers about the things you should be doing in your business as well. Colin says, how do you find the waves of need? Before we get to that, what were you going to say there, Phil?
Oh, I was just going to add on, I made a note here when you were talking about the shit hits the fan account. You've done a video, haven't you?
Yeah.
If people are using Xero, how to preview your GST period so far report, so that you can get an idea of how much GST you're racking up in the middle of a GST month, particularly if you're in a 6-month period that drags on. And by the time you get to the end of month 6, do that report, and you're like, shit, I've got to come up with that much cash for GST. You can monitor it as you go.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'll include that in the email tomorrow. What I would suggest, there's going to be a bit of a bombardment of resources for you tomorrow. So maybe just pick off a couple of things that you really can focus on and have a look at those, get your head around them, and then use it as a bit of a content bank to come back to, because there is a lot in there. Yeah, Colin's got a good one there. How do you flatten the waves of need? So last month we had 12 inquiries in 5 days and got 80% and of them in the business. Wicked. 2 weeks later, 1 estimate accepted. Yeah, we often talk about that too, about how things come in waves, and it's interesting. I guess you've got to go back to the source of what's creating the wave. Can you identify those things that are leading to that? Is there any cause and effect there? And I guess we'd need to understand if that's a good thing, that you're getting 12 inquiries, or actually if you can't actually service all of that work, or whether you need to look at how you schedule that out, or whether you actually need 12 inquiries every 5 days, because then we need to try and build a system to ensure that it's not coming in waves anymore. It's consistently rolling in, and perhaps you're getting 12 every week, and sometimes there's spikes and sometimes there's dips, and that would just come back to how it is that you attract your customers, and would need to understand that better as well. Joe says, thanks guys, much appreciated. No problem at all. I can't see how many people are still on. 32, cool, so still people. Thanks, no worries, Colin. Anybody else got any questions? You feel free to unmute yourself and ask anything as well. I can only really see.
The other bit that I'd chime in that we see when working on this with clients one-on-one is, more often than not, the process is just getting your ideas actually down on paper in a structured format, which we know, but then just giving yourself permission to do something. And that's just stepping into the unknown, essentially, because more often than not, you're looking at doing something that is outside your comfort zone. And working one-on-one with clients, we get to really kind of tease it out of them. And as Luke suggested, to do it over 4 hours is a pretty full-on exercise, and that's where we do that bottom-up analysis to wrap the financial thing around it. But just wrapping it in with that Strengthsfinder stuff, finding ways to give yourself the confidence to say, yes, I can do this, or delegate it out.
Yeah, nice. And I think like one thing that Phil and I always talk about, and it's like a little bit fluffy for some, but people don't get told enough how powerful they are and how much they can actually achieve. And I think we're like, a little bit scared to do that, whether it's a New Zealand thing or who knows. But, business as a vehicle, it's now the best, we believe, we're probably biased, but the best vehicle in terms of generating wealth in New Zealand, if you can get it working right, in terms of the tax rules, in terms of capital gains not being taxed if you're then to sell the business, and the technology and stuff that we've got available to us now. So you want to be squeezing that, and you want to be thinking bigger than necessarily what you've been brought up to think or what you currently think is possible, because there's some people doing some really phenomenal stuff out there, and often when they first got started, they thought that it wasn't possible, and then they start getting some wins on the board, they start getting around the right people, and they start really kicking some ass. So believe in yourself as well, and find ways to believe in yourself. The thing I'd say for people who are listening in that are starting a business, and I had this exact conversation with someone recently, New Zealand business owners are really, really giving of their time. And if you're having a crack at something, and say you want to start a pet store, and you've got no idea where to start, but you're just massively passionate about it, honestly, find 10 pet stores around the country that you're not effectively going to be competing with, get on the blower to them and be like, hey, look, I'm looking to take a risk. I want to start a pet store. I'd love to know from you what you'd do differently, what advice you'd have for me, and could I, donate $100 to the SPCA for your time? They'll say, no, don't worry about it. Of course, I'm more than happy to help you. And you'll be surprised how many lessons you can gain from people that have been there and done it before you, and you don't have to pay a cent to get them. The problem with not paying a cent to get them is that often we take them for granted and we don't listen to them as serious because we don't have any skin in the game. But, be brave and reach out to those people. You'll find some serious answers from people that have been ahead of you and already carved the path. A couple of pieces of feedback. Great kick up the arse. Got to go get it. That's it. Nice work. And, like Phil and I, it's no different for us. Like, we've got a number of clients where, we've built out 4/5 of our plan that we started building in Fiji. We are about to start building out our next 5-year vision. We've got to keep doing this process. We've got to get up every day. Today I was following up with a lead from last week that hasn't signed up as a client. That's still my responsibility. Okay, how come they haven't? How can I take them down the path further? What did I do wrong? What information didn't they get? You've got it. It's a sport, right? And it takes continual action to keep things moving. Great webinar. Reminds me what I need to do for taking on a new business. Awesome. Yes, kicked me into the positive approach now to get into gear. Love it. So hopefully you lean on the 3 things that you wrote down that you know you need to do and start tomorrow. Thanks, guys, so much for fabulous takeaways. Look forward to the next session. Thanks for great tips and material from your one follower in Sri Lanka. That's right. Outstanding. Cheers, guys. Managed to get the Stephen involved between the races. Great ideas for us to think about and have a yarn to you about in the near future. Definitely we'll be working on what we do with owners who aren't ideal clients and working with those who are. Awesome. Thanks heaps for a great webinar. Heaps of value and time to book a planning day. Love it. That is the way. We've got 4 that we are a little bit backlogged with because of COVID. We like to do them in person. We do a lot of 90-day stuff over Zoom, but 4 hours in person is a lot more exciting than trying to do 4 hours back to back on Zoom, isn't it, Phil?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we don't want to keep you too long. I can still see there's about 29 people there. But if anyone does have any questions, or perhaps you didn't want to send it through, you can always email us as well. Thank you for spending some time on this. I know there's people from all over New Zealand, which is awesome to see. it's just good to see people wanting to get better at things that they're doing and improve themselves in their business. That's what drives Phil and I, and we love, being a part of contributing to people's businesses and to their lives. So good on you. Awesome. Thanks. No, I'm a hashtag Amano. Brilliant.
Have you been yet?
I've been a couple of times. Yes, I have.
A couple.
I
haven't popped in.
Yeah. No, I've been in no worries, Grace. Yeah. And of course, there's a lot of content on our podcast as well, where we go through specific, like exact client situations that we're dealing with, different things that we've learned from, that they've learned from. So you can always go and tune into that if you haven't listened to that, but I'm sure you've probably found that by now. who are the lads at the bottom right of my screen? I can't see the name here, but I've been taking notes, which is good to see. Looks like Taylor's been tuned in. Mikey's probably watching some sort of Bitcoin strategy for his evening, but you're doing some study, which is good. Cheers, lads. We'll be in touch. Great. Good stuff. Thanks, Colin. Thanks. No worries, Taylor. And of course, like Phil says, email us, alan@nextadvisory.nz. We'll pick all of that up. Thanks, Ben. What a journey. Plenty to work on. Same for all of us. Oh, yeah, good stuff. Yep, book online there. Cool. Stop sharing that. Oh, that's a bit better now. I can actually see everyone. Oh, it's Mitchell. Nice. The boys are hard at. Look like you're taking heaps of notes there. Colin, good to see you. So Brad's in the background. Shane, nice. Oh, Grace is doing some learning. Well done. Sweet. I will end this. Oh, Colin's multitasking. Man of many talents. All right, I'll wrap this up and we will be in touch tomorrow. Have a good night.